looking, throwing in the end zone. Montana, touchdown, John Taylor.
Young to the air, Young to Jerry Rice, touchdown San Francisco.
Young stumbles on the way back and fires up the middle. Pass is caught by Owens.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm your host, Al Moriello, and today we're going to discuss the 49ers' 27-14 victory over Tampa Bay. We're going to be giving stats from the game, Pro Football Focus ratings, top 5 highest on offense and defense, snap counts of note, Brock Purdy's perfect game, and other stats to share, Christian McCaffrey's reaction to people that are still not Brock Purdy believers, how the Buccaneers made it interesting in the fourth quarter. We're going to talk about injuries, specifically to Talanoa Hufanga, decisions the Niners will have to make on a few players coming off of IR, and we're going to preview the Thanksgiving night game against the Seattle Seahawks. There's no plus content this week since it's a short week. We'll get back to that either later on this week or early next week. But like always, it's going to start and end with the Niners, this podcast. So let's get right into it.
Let's talk Niners.
So San Francisco took care of business, beating the Buccaneers 27-14 to improve their record to 7-3, now in sole possession of first place in the NFC West, thanks to the Rams taking care of business over Seattle this past weekend. Let's go over stats from the game. Total yards, 420 to 287 for San Francisco. The Bucs had 2 turnovers, San Francisco none. Quarterback play, Brock Purdy, 21 of 25, 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was sacked 4 times. Baker Mayfield threw for 246 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and was also sacked 4 times. Running the ball, Christian McCaffrey, of course, led the way, 21 rushes for 78 yards. Eli Mitchell, 4 for 24. And as a team, they ran it 30 times for 115 yards against a pretty good run defense. Rachaad White from the Buccaneers, 9 for 30 and a touchdown as a team. Tampa, 18 for 66 and 1 touchdown. Receiving, Ayuk, 5 for 156 and a touchdown. Kittle, 8 for 89 and a touchdown. Debo, 3 for 63. McCaffrey, 5 for 25 and a touchdown. For the Buccaneers, tight end Cade Otton, 4 for 49. Wide receiver Mike Evans, 5 for 43 and a score. And wide receiver Chris Godwin, 6 for 39. Niners generated 4 sacks total. Nick Bosa, Chase Young, and Eric Armstead each had 1. Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw each with a half a sack each. Turnovers, Clelin Ferrell recovered a fumble, and Jair Brown, safety in for the injured Talanoa Hufanga, had an interception in the end zone. Pro Football Focus ratings, top 5 on offense. George Kittle led the way, 87.8. Brandon Ayuk, 87.6. Brock Purdy, 82.6. Trent Williams, 74.8. And Christian McCaffrey, 69.7. On defense, Fred Warner, 83.9, Eric Armstead, 83.6, Tayshaun Gibson, 80.1, Nick Bosa, 78.6, and Diamador Lenore, 77.2, who still has not allowed a receiving touchdown in coverage yet this season. Snap counts of note. Offensively, there were 60 snaps for the 49ers. George Kittle played 58 of them. Charlie Warner, 22, and Ross Dwelly at 2 for tight end. The running back rotation of 60 snaps, McCaffrey played 52, Mitchell played 8, and Mason played 2. Defense, 71 total snaps. Diamador Lenore, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, and Tayshaun Gibson played all 71. Looking at the other cornerbacks, Charvarius Ward played 70. Ambry Thomas in the slot played 57. Oliver played 1 snap, and that's that 1 snap he came in when Charvarius Ward had to go out for a play when he was shaken up. The D-end rotation, Nick Bosa, 62 snaps. Chase Young, 48. Clelin Ferrell, 20. And Randy Gregory with 12. So let's start off talking about the quarterback play and Purdy literally being perfect. He achieved a perfect quarterback rating of 158.3. He's only the 66th player in NFL history To achieve that, he's the first 49er quarterback since 1989 to have a perfect passer rating. That year, both Joe Montana and Steve Young achieved it, and Purdy is the only quarterback in 49ers history with a perfect quarterback rating while attempting 20 or more passes. Purdy was 21 of 25. He was sharp. He showed timing and touch when he needed to, especially on the in-breaking routes to Ayuk. Deep ball accuracy down the sideline to Ayuk, and escapability, pocket awareness, picking up a few yards on the ground with his legs, but keeping plays alive for some big chunk plays, breaking the pocket, stepping up, and delivering on time. The deep ball to Ayuk, although, a 76-yard touchdown, which I believe is the longest passing touchdown of the year, either by Purdy or in the NFL in general. I went back to look at the replay. The ball traveled 35 yards in the air. And that's fine. That's still a bomb, right? They don't need to be 50 plus in the air like Allen can throw, like Mahomes can throw. I'm recording this on a Tuesday. Last night, Mahomes had a nice bomb. I think it was close to 50 yards in the air to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who extended and dropped it. It was rainy conditions, but that could have helped the 49ers if the Chiefs could have beaten the Eagles. But you don't have to throw the ball 50 yards in the air, 55 plus, to stretch the defense and keep the long ball and deep passes in play. So folks that were knocking Purdy that he can't throw deep. All right, it was one throw this game. It was one throw last game, remember, down the right sideline to George Kittle in the face of a rush that was pushing the pocket back into Brock Purdy. He has shown everything mentally, everything you could ask for mentally and physically from him, from the body type he is, and knowing the kind of arm strength that he has. He is never going to run like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. He's never going to throw the ball like Herbert, Allen, or Mahomes. He does not have that arm. But for what he needs to do in the offense, what Kyle is asking of him, and let's be fair too, for anybody that's still doubting Brock, the deep ball has opened up more this year than in previous years. And the accuracy on deep passes has become better than it has in previous years when it was Garoppolo under center. Let's go back, though. Let's talk about this 2-game stretch that Brock has had against a decent Jacksonville defense, an okay Tampa defense, scoring defense, they're top 10. They're not great against the pass, but again, these are still NFL caliber defenses. Started out hot 5-0, lost 3 games. People were wondering if Purdy was going to be benched because they are morons, not understanding that anyone and everyone who has ever played quarterback has had bad games or consecutive bad games. And what did Purdy do? He came out after the bye, went down to Jacksonville. They throttled the Jaguars and then took care of business at home against Tampa Bay. Purdy's last 2 games, he is 40 of 51. That's a completion percentage of 78.4, thrown for 629 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, a passer rating of 157.3. That's across 2 games. Remember, 158.3 is a perfect rating. And this is the highest 2-start quarterback span since QB stats became a thing in 1950. 73 years. Nobody has had a better 2-game span from a QB rating standpoint than Brock Purdy. He's completing 78% of his passes. He's averaging 315 yards and averaging 3 touchdowns during those 2 games. 2-game sample, but it is historic. Coming off of, again, the start to his career that he had last year, first 5 games this year, hit a rough patch for 3 games. There will be other rough patches, guys. There will be other rough patches this season and subsequent seasons. You can guarantee it. It's how you bounce back. You'd like him, you like him and the Niners to bounce back eventually after one bad game or two bad games, but it happens really to all teams at some point during the season or over the course of a season or two. Things are not going to go right. Other teams are going to win the turnover differential. They're going to get to the quarterback, cause sacks, force fumbles, get in rhythm offensively against the Niners defense, against any team's defense, right? Look at the Browns, as good as they are and as sloppy as the game was this past weekend against the Steelers, they have been lit up by teams, even though they are the number one defense in the league by a far margin in terms of total yards and rushing yards and passing yards. Here's another stat just in terms of, two more stats. Let's start with one before we can get to the second one in terms of passing. San Francisco, as you might not find shocking, perhaps, is last in the NFL in passing attempts. They have thrown the ball 278 times. That is last. However, they are 8th in the league in passing yards with 2,669. What does that mean? What is that saying? Couple things. Yards after the catch, right? Get it out. No matter how deep, medium, or shallow the routes are run, Purdy's throwing on time and giving his weapons, McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, and Samuel, among others, chances to run with the ball and gain extra yards. 2, it's speaking to efficiency. When Shanahan is dialing up a play and Purdy is going through his reads and progressions, more often than not, and it's basically over a 70% clip this season, he is completing passes to the right receiver and again, giving them chances to make more beyond the point of the catch. So you don't have to throw the ball 350 times to make a dent offensively or to make an impact with your passing game, both in a game, during a drive, situationally, or overall throwing for 2,600 and nearly 70 yards, 8th most in the league on the fewest pass attempts. I've said before in previous podcasts, they are the most efficient passing offense in the league. Here is another stat that proves it. It can't be disproven, right? Some people out there don't want to believe in facts, false facts, social media, the internet are overrun with people stating things that other people believe that are based on nothing. This is actual math, counting yards, efficiencies, completion percentage. The Niners passing offense is operating at a higher clip than it ever has under Kyle Shanahan. And one last note on Purdy specifically before I get into something that Christian McCaffrey had to say. The idea that Brock Purdy is a dink and dunk passer. I don't know if it's ever going to be put to rest because a lot of things in life, perception overrules reality. And if you are not watching every 49er game like I am, and others, not just me, and you're just a talking head in the media, or you assume because it's a West Coast offense and Purdy doesn't have a strong arm and Kyle Shanahan's dialing up plays and getting people open, that things are going to be short to Debo and McCaffrey and Kittle. Ayuk is generally the one receiver that probably runs the deepest routes consistently, but he's still not running 30, 40 yards downfield unless he's clearing something out for Debo or Kittle. But when we're talking about passes thrown either behind the line of scrimmage or up to 9 yards downfield, 56% of Purdy's pass attempts are for either behind the line or up to 9 yards downfield. And you may say, well, that's a lot. That's more than half. But you'd be surprised how many quarterbacks are over the 50% mark with that ranking. Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, 60% of his passes are either behind the line of scrimmage or up to 9 yards downfield. Patrick Mahomes, 63% of his passes are either behind the line of scrimmage or up to 9 yards downfield. I don't have this stat for every quarterback in the league, but if we are going to think Again, perception overrules reality. Mahomes, the big arm, and the Chiefs offense that, historically might have been bombs away when they had Tyreek Hill and Josh Allen with Diggs and Gabe Davis. You think, he throws down. Yeah, he throws downfield a lot, and he throws interceptions as well. Had a pretty clean game against the Jets. I think just one interception, or maybe none. I don't recall. I didn't watch that game because it was terrible, and the Niners were on at the same time. But if we're going to have the perception that because maybe they've thrown more downfield in years past, or they have the big arm, or you get to watch highlights of these quarterbacks on YouTube, or you catch a little bit of a Monday night game or Sunday night game or ESPN that, but Allen and Mahomes are bombs away. At times, like all quarterbacks are at times, but they are more dink and dunk quarterbacks than Brock Purdy. I just gave you the stats. If you want to argue it, you can, but you'd be foolish. And Christian McCaffrey, if I sounded a little frustrated there, I didn't mean to. He sounded a little frustrated when somebody asked him if Brock Purdy's success is based on the people around him. Here was the exact quote that McCaffrey was asked, or I guess question that was asked. The criticism for San Francisco quarterback Brock Purdy right now is that his teammates are doing all the work. Sometimes they'll say, it's just because Christian McCaffrey is on the team. What is your opinion of that? And here is McCaffrey's response. Yeah, that's a horrendous statement. That's never been the case. You could make that argument with any quarterback. I could show you the tape. If we really sit down and watch all the amazing throws, amazing plays, off-schedule plays, and the checks that he's getting to, it starts with him. Just think of NFL quarterbacks now or in the past that you've considered to be a great quarterback or playing highly efficient football from the quarterback position. They all, or the vast majority of them, and by vast majority, I mean like 85 to 90% of them, have had a strong complement of weapons. Jalen Hurts is doing it with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift in the backfield. Mahomes is struggling this year because outside of Travis Kelce, no one's really stepping up at the wide receiver spot. But as I mentioned, Mahomes is the only elite quarterback that can elevate the subpar play of those around him. He didn't do it last night. He gave his team a chance. Overall, I don't think he threw for even over 200 yards last night. He gave his team a chance to win, threw a catchable ball to Valdez-Scantling. Couldn't make the catch. Josh Allen, between Davis and Diggs, Dawson Knox, James Cook coming on at running back has weapons. Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams when he's healthy, Josh Palmer, Everett and Parham at tight end. He's got weapons. Even, Seattle, I know Geno Smith's not playing well, but Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Walker at running back, Njigba Smith that they drafted out of Ohio State. The Vikings have weapons between it was Dalvin Cook or Alexander Madison, Justin Jefferson, even though he's been hurt, Kasim Osborne, Jordan Addison, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks, Jake Ferguson, Tony Pollard. Quarterbacks that are playing elite. Guys, they have elite weapons. Trevor Lawrence isn't playing great. I don't know if I'm going to sit here and say I would take Brock Purdy over Trevor Lawrence, and I know a lot of pundits probably wouldn't, but you have Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and Travis Etienne. Stop with the whole Purdy is only doing it because he has weapons around him. He still has to get the ball there, guys. He still has to diagnose the defense, make the right read, get the ball out on time, climb the pocket when there's pressure, not take sacks, limit turnovers. Still only had five interceptions in 10 games. So when you average it out, that's one every other game. One every other game. Had to double check my math there. It's a weak, lazy take because if people want to drop to their knees for Justin Herbert or, hey, Joe Burrow, he's out for the year, and Joe Burrow is a great quarterback, to me, second best quarterback in the league. Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, and they've always had serviceable tight ends. How much better does Joe Mixon look on San Francisco, and how different does Brock Purdy look on Cincinnati? There will be differences because Purdy is not as good or talented of a quarterback as Joe Burrow. But put Burrow on the Giants or the Jets or the Bears or the Cardinals, and he is not Joe Burrow that we know. It's a lazy friggin' take. And yeah, did Burrow struggle a little bit without Williams and Debo? Yeah, but I also think Shanahan got away from what the playbook is because he had Debo out. I kept mentioning where are the bubble screens, where are the quick throws, etc., where are the handoffs, end arounds. And when you're missing your left tackle, obviously you're going to be sliding protection, whether it's Warner or Kittle or chipping with a running back on that side. I get it. Everybody's going to struggle without their one of their star weapons, I guess, except Kirk Cousins against the Niners, who lit up the Niners secondary with Justin Jefferson being out. It could happen, right? It's a roll of the dice sometimes, and you're not going to play high-level football, every single game. But any quarterback that we are considering great, elite, very good, chances are they have great or very good weapons because they wouldn't be great or very good without them. Man, probably preaching to the choir because I know I have a very smart audience, but still, just had to be said. Now, even though the Niners won by 13, they covered the spread, which was 12 for those of you that cared. The Buccaneers did not go away. They made it interesting in the late third and fourth quarter. So with the score 20-7, George Kittle scores on a 3-yard touchdown pass from Brock Purdy to make it 27-17 with 1:42 left in the third. Tampa Bay gets the ball, goes down the field in 2.5 minutes for a touchdown, making it 27-14 with 14-16 left in the game, essentially the whole fourth quarter. The Niners' next drive, 3 and out. Tampa then goes on a 17-play, 68-yard drive that takes up 5 minutes and 46 seconds. On a 4th and 4, they get down to the 49er 12. Jair Brown, rookie safety, and for Talanoa Hufanga breaks up a pass for Mike Evans by the goal line, by the sideline, turnover on downs. The Niners then again on offense go 3 and out, punts it to Tampa, who returns it to the 49ers 13, and Jair Brown picks off Baker Mayfield in the end zone on a pass that went off a player's helmet. So this is a game, when you're up 27-7, you'd like to see the defense really put their foot on Tampa's throat. And it's not that I don't think Steve Wilks played soft. Couple nice throws by Mayfield, a pass interference on Fred Warner. They got down the field quick. But even at 27-14, Tampa Bay's defense stiffened, held the Niners to 2 3 and outs, and then the Niners defense rose up, forced a turnover on downs and an interception, both plays courtesy of Jair Brown, who I believe was given the game ball by Kyle Shanahan after the game. And even Shanahan did say, when you're up by 20, you want to extend the lead or prevent the opposing offense from chipping away. Now, you get up by 20, Tampa Bay has to get the ball after that, right? Because you scored. You would like to see a defensive stop, a punt, and maybe even if you kick a field goal, you get it to 23, which is still only a 3-score game. But lengthening the lead versus holding on. In a lot of ways, the 49ers held on against Tampa. Tampa was game, but the Niners, even though with all that, still held Tampa Bay to their lowest yardage output of the season, won the turnover battle 2-0, which went a long way to holding on for a 27-14 victory. So we talked about injuries. Talanoa Hufanga in the first half, a non-contact injury to I believe it was his right knee. It is a torn ACL. He is done for the season. There's optimism that he could be ready to start the year. I mean, someone like Kyler Murray tore his ACL around this time last year, did not come back until 2 weeks ago. I'll be optimistic with Hufanga to see if he could come back to start the season. You're talking December. I'm counting on my fingers like a child if you can't see. December, January, February, March, April, May, June. That's 7 months before you get into training camp in July. We'll see. We'll see. He will be healthy at some point next year. Knock on wood, you would think. ACLs, you never know. People still paint it as a doom and gloom. He may never be the same again type of injury. For a small percentage of players and patients, that is the case. But these athletes with the high-end rehabilitation that they undergo, I mean, rehabilitating hours upon hours a day. When I tore my ACL, I don't know what it was at this point now. I got surgery 24 years ago, summer of 1999. I was going to rehab 3 days a week for like an hour and a half and doing like minor exercises for flexibility, bending my knee while I was at home. A lot different when it's a pro athlete. I mean, they are literally rehabbing maybe half a day or more, however much the knee can withstand. Once you obviously can stand and walk and get stability in the knee, because the first 3 to 4 weeks is really getting your flexibility back, being able to bend. So we'll see. Hoping obviously the best for Hufanga. He's co-leading the team with interceptions on the year with 3. As I mentioned, Jair Brown, the rookie from Penn State, didn't get a lot of playing time up until this point, was mainly playing special teams, but he's going to be counted upon now to man the other safety spot opposite to Sean Gibson. And Brown was able to play half the game. So when Hufanga got hurt, Hufanga played 36 snaps, Brown played 35, and obviously the two most important snaps were a breakup on 4th and 4 and interception in the end zone. So now, what are some safety options that the Niners have? Well, on a short week on a Thursday, I would imagine they're going to elevate safety Taylor Hawkins from the practice squad. This is his second year with the team. That's the most logical thing for them to do. And I think the other elevation, again, would probably be center guard Corey Luciano to have a third backup lineman active. Because, again, Aaron Banks is still out. There's some hope he could maybe come back after the Seahawks game. So that's essentially 12 days from now. John Feliciano is starting there at left guard, and Spencer Burford's still the right guard. So Hawkins will more than likely be elevated. In terms of bringing someone in, now they may like Hawkins and elevate him full-time. A name that was thrown out there that's a possibility, former 49ers safety Jaquiski Tartt. While not a ball hawk like Hufanga is, and Hufanga was playing a little bit out of control and reckless at times with some of the blitzing and the bad angles that he was taking, better this year than last year, and that goes with growth, with this year being Hufanga's 3rd year in the league. But they're not going to bring anybody in to start, I don't think. They're going to bring someone in to back up Jair Brown, because right now it's Gibson, it's Brown. George Odom is the 3rd safety on the team, but he's more special teams. If they can bring someone in off the street, a free agent, and I don't think Tartt would be a bad option. He's well-versed in the cover 3 defense. He signed actually with the Philadelphia Eagles last off-season, so 2022, and was released before the season started, just had a hard time adapting to what the Eagles were doing defensively. At that time, before last season started, if you remember, Jimmy Ward, who was safety, then moved to slot cornerback when he got healthy, had a hamstring injury in the preseason or leading into the regular season. And there was some preliminary discussions between Jaquiski Tartt and the 49ers, and Tartt chose not to sign. And his quote was something to the effect of, I'm waiting for the right opportunity. Obviously, there's a comfort level there with San Francisco, but, and he admitted, he's like, listen, I made a good amount of money for what I have to put my body through during the course of a season. I'm looking for more than the league minimum. And I can understand that. I think he's made close to $20 million in his career. And I mean, $10 million earned, because you have to take 50% right off the top for taxes. But now you're coming in, it's less than half the season. Maybe they can get him for under $1 million for the remainder of the season, which would essentially be like a $2.5 million contract, but only $1 million on the books to back up. And maybe Tartt would come to the 49ers to ring chase. It's a team he's familiar with, and to play in a backup role. Now, if that means he would need to play special teams, I don't know. That's a conversation, obviously, Lynch and Shanahan and the defensive staff and special team staff would have to have with him. but I think that's an option. There are obviously a bunch of other safeties that are out there on the street. I'm not going to list them off. I was looking on the website, protrack.com, that lists out really salaries and contracts for literally any of the major sports, but they also go into free agents as well. So there's a nice list of, I think, maybe 20 to 30 free agent safeties that the Niners could look at. But we'll see. It's good. Like I said, it's going to start with practice squad candidate Taylor Hawkins being elevated for the Seahawks game. So the Niners have 4 safeties on their roster for their Thanksgiving night game against the Seahawks. And before we get into that preview, the 49ers will have to make decisions, I think, by Wednesday or maybe Thursday morning on rookie defensive end Robert Beal and third-year cornerback Samuel Womack. Their practice windows expire the next game, which is Thursday. So it's a shame they don't have more time to see and evaluate them. The 49ers right now have 6 cornerbacks on the 53-man roster. They activated Darrell Luter, the 5th-round rookie draft pick, who I guess played some against the Bucs. Didn't really notice him at all out there, but they activated him. He's on the 53. And Shamar Jean-Charles was elevated from the practice squad last week to the 53 for the Bucs game, so he's part of the roster. The Niners, it's very rare that they've carried 6 cornerbacks. So what's a possibility here? So to me, they can look to release Jean-Charles, and if they want to have a 6th cornerback, then you activate Samuel Womack and maybe re-sign Shamar Jean-Charles to the practice squad, because right now there are no corners on the 49ers practice squad. And I would think they would need one just in case of injury. So one option is release Jean-Charles, sign him to the practice squad because you're elevating Taylor Hawkins, and he might be elevated to the full roster anyway. And you could bring Womack onto the 53 as your 6th corner, or if you want to really insulate yourselves against any injuries on the defensive end spot, you could again release Jean-Charles and bring Robert Beal to the 53-man roster. I would be surprised if they stay pat with Shamar Jean-Charles on the 53 because he's a practice squad candidate. Robert Beal is not. If you release him, someone's going to pick him up. Samuel Womack is not. If you release him, someone is going to pick him up. So one of Beal or Womack is going to be unfortunately put on long-term IR, or unless, again, they release Jean-Charles, they release Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, since they have 6 linebackers, and you bring these 2 players up, an extra defensive end, Niners love defensive linemen, and an extra corner, and Womack offers more on defense, whereas Jean-Charles is more of a special teams player, at least at this point, with the defense. The others that could come back later in the season, wide receiver Danny Gray, there's no spot for him. The Niners aren't going to carry 6 receivers unless, and I'm not even sure if they've opened up his practice window yet. If something happens to one of their receivers, they could possibly look at Danny Gray. But then at the same time, if something happens to a receiver, do you want Danny Gray in, or do you want Chris Conley or Willie Snead as veterans? Yes, Gray brings the speed element. That's great. He's a one-trick pony still at this point. I would rather have the veteran than Danny Gray. So I can, again, barring maybe an injury or 2, I could see Gray staying on IR the rest of the season, and defensive end Drake Jackson, same thing. Now, maybe he makes Robert Beal redundant right now when they just stash Robert Beal, put him on long-term IR, essentially a redshirt year for him, and he comes back next year. And knowing that they have Jackson that they could bring back in a couple weeks, I think it would still probably be another 3 weeks before he could play, knowing that he's the defensive end that they could call up in case of injury. The only other one, so offensive lineman Nick Sakiel, I don't know if he was actually just completely put on season-ending IR. I think it was like a bicep tear, so he might be done for the season. And the Niners will navigate that interior backup offensive line spot with either practice squad elevations or bringing someone up to the 53. So let's now preview the 49ers at Seattle Thanksgiving night, 8 o'clock Eastern on NBC. San Francisco is opening up as a 7-point favorite. I don't like that from a bulletin board standpoint in Seattle. I don't like that from a bad luck standpoint, or just, I can't think of the word when you're not feeling good about it. I'm just going to move past it because I can't think of the word. I'm surprised. I wonder if Vegas knows more about the injuries to quarterback Geno Smith, who hurt his tricep, and head coach Pete Carroll said it's the tendon that attaches the tricep to the bone, so not the muscle itself. I don't know how that makes that any better or worse, but it is inflamed. It is sore. Geno Smith did come into the end of the game against the Rams on Sunday, got the Seahawks in field goal position, and Jason Myers missed a 55-yard field goal. The Rams win, and now the Seahawks are 6-4. Running back Kenneth Walker has an oblique injury. Like McCaffrey, it seems to be more of a major injury than McCaffrey's. Walker might miss time. There's some other nicked up players that we're going to get to, but Seahawks 6-4, lost twice to the Rams, not a good team. Lost at Cincinnati with Burrow, good team at the time, and lost at Baltimore. They got destroyed. Very good team at the time. They won at Detroit, at home against Carolina, at the Giants, at home against Arizona, at home against Cleveland, and at home against Washington. So they haven't really beaten. They beat Detroit earlier on in the year. They beat Cleveland, and I think that was a without Watson game, I believe. Otherwise, Carolina's bad, the Giants are bad, the Cardinals are bad, and Washington's not very good either. Offensively, it's going to either be Geno Smith or Drew Lock at quarterback. Running back, it's either going to be Kenneth Walker or rookie Zach Charbonnet. And the receivers, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. On defense, some of the players that jump out, Leonard Williams, who they acquired in a trade from the Giants a few weeks ago. Bobby Wagner made his way back to Seattle at linebacker after 1 year with the Rams. Frank Clark picked up off of waivers from the Chiefs, and he was with Seattle to that point. Jamal Adams at safety, Tariq Woolen, and Devin Witherspoon, the rookie, at corner. So now when I was looking at the stats, this team is more middling than I honestly thought they were. Now, granted, I have Geno Smith on one of my fantasy teams, so I should know how middling their passing game is, or offense in general, but let's look at the stats. So offensively, the Seahawks are 18th overall, 13th passing, averaging 230.8 yards per game. Rushing, they are 25th, 96.6 yards a game, and points scored, they are 16th, averaging 21.6 points per game. On defense, overall, 23rd, 21st against the pass, allowing 233 yards, 19th against the run, allowing 112.6 yards, and 19th in points allowed, 21.8 points allowed per game. I thought, looking into these numbers, that they would be better, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, I thought they were running the ball better than at a 96.5% clip, and they are scoring just as many points, or actually 0.2 fewer points than they are allowing. And I just thought things were maybe going to be a little bit better or tighter for the Seahawks defensively, and a bit more explosive offensively. And again, at least based on the stats and the numbers, that's not the case. Now, the defense can get after the quarterback. They have 31 sacks. They're averaging just over 3 sacks a game. Outside linebacker Boye Mafe leads the team with 7. Defensive tackle Jaron Reed has 4. And for as good as I believe the secondary is or can become, they have only 7 interceptions on the year. So the injuries, again, Geno Smith's tricep, he did come back in and play. This is a short week. How is he going to respond? I'm going to assume that he's playing. He won't be 100%. They'll give him something to fight the inflammation. They'll give a pain blocker. He'll hurt like a bitch on Friday, but I think he's going to play. I think Kenneth Walker is out. It seemed like it was a fairly significant injury per Pete Carroll, so it will be Zach Charbonnet running the ball. Tyler Lockett has had a hamstring injury that he's been dealing with, but plays through it. And Jamal Adams, who has been beaten up a lot this year, had a concussion the first drive of the first week of the season, has been battling a knee injury, and I think he was out last game against the Rams, but he should be back. So that Seahawk pass rush against the 49ers O-line, like I said, outside linebacker Boye Mafe, Frank Clark, Darrell Taylor, Leonard Williams on the inside. Can the 49ers keep Brock Purdy upright and give him time to throw? Something to watch during the game. The Niners secondary, Charvarius Ward, Ambry Thomas, and Diamador Lenore against Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Jackson Njigba Smith. So this is obviously going to link to how well the Niners defensive line plays against Seattle's O-line. In the past 2 games against Geno Smith, they've been able to get to him. They've been able to rattle Smith and really hold down the Seahawks passing game. And with Smith having the injured arm, the injured tricep, again, on his throwing arm, that could all factor into a less than stellar passing performance by Geno Smith. And on the flip side, Bosa and Young versus Seattle's offensive tackles, which is second-year player Charles Cross and 41-year-old Jason Peters, formerly of the Eagles, that the Seahawks called up from the practice squad, who will be manning, I don't know if it's going to be the left-hand side or the right side, protecting Geno Smith. Can the line, so now with the Chase Young acquisition, 5 sacks against Jacksonville, 4 sacks last week against Tampa. What can they do against the Seahawks O-line? The Niners run defense, which is very good, top 4 in the league, top 4 or 5 in the league against Seattle, a team that runs the ball, gets only 96.6 yards per game on the ground. Again, that's 25th in the league. No Kenneth Walker. So it's going to be Zach Charbonnet, strong, powerful rookie running back, but different completely than Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is a weapon. Zach Charbonnet may get there. He's not there yet. I don't know if it's going to be DJ Dallas as the backup or whoever's going to spell Charbonnet, but that Seahawk running game missing their number 1 running back, that will hurt them. And then lastly, Purdy and the 49ers weapons, and it's everybody. It's McCaffrey, it's Mitchell, it's Kittle, it's Ayuk, it's Debo, it's Juwan Jennings, McLeod against Seattle's secondary. Now, nickel cornerback Kobe Bryant for the Seahawks, not sure if he's going to slide back into a starting position, but he has been designated to return off of IR, so he is an option for this game. And Seattle's secondary, again, it's not there statistically. 21st against the pass, 19th in points allowed. And when we're talking about the defense as a whole, 19th, or at least run defense, 19th against the rush and 23rd against the whole. Still, this is a secondary that is going to get handsy, that they're going to get up in the Niners receiver's face. They're going to play press. They'll mix in man and zone, but they will reroute Ayuk, Debo, and company to throw off the timing of the 49ers offense. And these are corners that can challenge, that can run with the receivers. And I'm not so worried about Ayuk because, Ayuk, he's a man beater in terms of his route running. Debo, not so much. I don't think they're going to line up a corner on Kittle. I'd be surprised if they played someone like a Kobe Bryant or whoever their number 3, number 4 cornerback is going to be. But Seattle is, or at least the media, is calling this iteration of the Seattle secondary the Legion of Boom Part 2. If they play up to it on Thursday night, the 49ers are going to have problems throwing the ball. We'll see how much Seattle sends a blitz at Purdy. Purdy is a solid blitz beater, but he's also the most efficient quarterback beating any type of coverage historically, at least this year, that teams are playing. So again, this Seattle game worries me. The secondary, again, it's not shown in the stats, but they can make things very, very difficult for the 49ers offense. And even with the injuries that we've talked about, Geno Smith's throwing arm, Kenneth Walker, Lockett's hamstring, he's going to play. Who knows about Jamal Adams' knee? I'm sure he's going to play. Is Kobe Bryant going to be back? And the Niners obviously a little bit banged up on the offensive line with Feliciano, but relatively healthy, knock on wood, everywhere else. I said several weeks ago that the Seahawks game and the Eagles game were losses. Now, I watched the game last night. Yes, the Eagles are 9-1. They're a beatable team. They are not as dominant as they were last year. So are the Chiefs. The Chiefs are a beatable team. So are the Seahawks. So are the Lions. Anybody in the league for the 49ers and for teams of the 49ers ilk, they are winnable games. They're coin flip games in some capacities. They're winnable games. I just don't like the matchup of what Seattle brings in the secondary. I don't like the fact that it's a holiday game. I don't like the fact that it's a night game. I don't like the fact that it's in Seattle. The 12s are a real thing. This is one of the most difficult places to play. It's a division matchup. It's a game where now that Seattle's a game behind the Niners, they can't fall 2 games behind or 2.5 games because the Niners would have that victory. And that was a huge loss for Seattle, a huge loss to go. If they were both 7-3, and this is a game where I don't feel good about the 49ers, even though they're playing really well the last 2 games, they obviously are. I just think it's a matchup, at least offensively for the Niners against the Seahawks defense. Throw the stats out the window, especially when it's a division game, right? You hear people say that. Throw stats out the window. I don't like the matchup. Would I feel better about this game if it was in San Francisco? Absolutely. And they're going to play again in 2.5 weeks. It's this Thursday at Seattle, 2 Sundays after that at Philadelphia, and then coming home after that the following week to host the Seahawks. But the Rams pulling out the victory is huge because the Niners' loss here has them pulling even at 7-4 apiece. And that means the Niners would be falling another game behind Philadelphia. And at this point, I think Philadelphia is just going to be hard to catch. They have Buffalo, they have the Niners, they have Dallas, and their last 3 games or 4 games of the year are just jokes. I don't think anyone's going to catch Philadelphia for home field advantage. And if anybody does, it's going to be the Lions, not San Francisco. So I'm actually going to say Seattle 23-20. But the Niners, assuming everybody's healthy, get their revenge 2 games after that. Superstitious was the word that I couldn't think of earlier when I just said, let's go back to it. I don't want to hold up on this anymore. I wouldn't say I'm superstitious this game. This game just makes me uneasy. Seattle, division rival, holiday game, which really doesn't mean much other than the fact that it's a night game in Seattle, which I just don't like. It's going to cause the crowd to get even more ruckus, and just that matchup with the Seattle secondary. Is it a winnable game? Of course. And look at the spread. Vegas thinks Niners by 7. I think that's disrespectful to the Seahawks unless they know more about Geno Smith's injury. If Drew Lock starts this game, the Niners win. I think Geno Smith, even with a hurt arm, is a better quarterback than Drew Lock, even with an injured arm/tricep. I think the Niners would win with Drew Lock at quarterback, but did anybody think San Francisco would lose at Cleveland with P.J. Walker at quarterback? Did anyone think the Niners would lose at Minnesota without Justin Jefferson for Kirk Cousins? No. So again, week-to-week league, division matchup. I'm saying, unfortunately, Seahawks 23, San Francisco 20. Will be pleasantly surprised by a victory. I think this is a very winnable game. And in a lot of ways, a game the 49ers should win, like Cleveland, like Minnesota, but one that I just don't feel good about. Hope I'm wrong. So that concludes the 49ers podcast for today. This is going to be the only podcast leading up to the game, obviously, right? So this is Tuesday. The 49er game on Thanksgiving is Thursday. The next podcast will either be Black Friday or the following Monday or Tuesday. It just depends on schedules, but I'm really aiming for a Friday podcast. And whatever day that podcast drops, there will be plus content in addition to 49er content. So until then, I hope everybody has a very safe, happy, and healthy next couple days, a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Whatever you are doing, enjoy the football. What is it? It's 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, 12:30, Detroit and Green Bay, Dallas and Washington, and then the nightcap, San Francisco and Seattle, which obviously has the possibility to ruin all of our Thanksgivings, but at least it's at the end of the day and not the beginning. And then lots and lots of shopping, lots and lots of deals, Black Friday into Cyber Monday. So hopefully we'll talk before the weekend, but regardless, hope you and your family have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Stay happy, healthy, and safe, and we will talk soon. Take care.